The base has dropped on 2019 Soccer Down here, well past Wednesday. Taking your questions on Twitter at Soccer Down here. Wherever you want to take the show this morning, you can do that to open a new year. You have questions about Atlanta United's academy going to play in a prestigious tournament in Germany. Cool. Send them our way. You have questions about Frank de Boer and his flight schedule because he's in the air right now over the Atlantic Ocean. Cool. Send them over. Whatever you guys want to get into, send them our way on Twitter at Soccer Down here. Jason Longshore, John Nelson, Jarrett Smith with you this morning. And guys, the big news of the day from an American soccer perspective is Christian Pulisic headed to Chelsea in the summer. Deal's done now. He's loaned back to Dortmund. He'll finish the year with Dortmund. He's headed to Chelsea for a stupid amount of money, John.
Yeah. And 57.6 million pounds, 64 million euro, the translation?
I believe so.
So he had the 2.5 paragraph essay, or at least as a part of it, entering his final months at the world famous club. But I think that Kyle Martino actually said it best, at least coming out of the blocks this morning. He said, we don't really know how things are going to fit with him at Chelsea, but it's still pretty freaking cool that an American talent is sold for that kind of money.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing that I think it's easy to forget about is we've never seen anything like this. An American player sold for this type of transfer. This is just, it's never happened. And I think a lot of people do lose the plot a little bit when it comes to Pulisic. He developed in the United States. He didn't go to Dortmund at 8 years old. He went to Dortmund as a teenager. It's a different situation than some other talents who have grown up in a European system. He did in a lot of ways, but he grew up playing in Pennsylvania, and he also had the benefit of a father who was a former professional player and a great coach in his own right, and that definitely gave him some advantages that others wouldn't have had. But this is a big deal, Jarrett, for American soccer as a whole. I mean, we've talked about it from the MLS perspective. When Miguel Almiron, gets sold, it's going to change the narrative for what players are valued at in MLS in other leagues around the world. I think this type of deal changes what American players are valued at in general.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly will. And we'll get a better idea of how things go in the future based on how he performs, how he does with Borussia Dortmund the rest of, this last stretch of the season. And then also once he's in Chelsea, how does it fit in? How does he do? And it might kind of be unfair, honestly, in the sense that he's going to be under a magnifying glass. And even if, Chelsea decided to make changes and, he doesn't fit, the game plan of the future, I mean, he's still going to be expected to perform well. So a lot of pressure on him, but still a lot of excitement as well that you've got an American going for that much money who did develop here, who didn't go over there at a young age, spend their lives in the academy. And, I think it was 3 or 4 times what John Brooks got was worth on a transfer. I mean, just absolutely insane money.
Yeah, and again, the big difference, is Brooks didn't grow up playing in the United States. Pulisic did before he went to Dortmund. It's an important thing that I think gets lost in the shuffle at times. But you're right. This is a move with pressure attached to it, and Pulisic has to represent American players well, or all those questions, all those naysayers that are out there that you see saying like, oh, an American player is not worth that kind of money. Not even like thinking of Christian Pulisic as a player in his own right. Just, oh, he's American, he can't be worth that kind of money. It's the same thing that you see the naysayers saying about Miguel Almiron. Like, oh, he's from MLS, he can't be worth that kind of money. The way that changes is, 1, the deal happens, 2, the player performs, because then that changes the perception, and people realize that, hey, there are American players who are worth that kind of money. Hey, there are Major League Soccer players who are worth that kind of money. These are important steps, and this is part of that growth process all the way across the board. Back, John, was this from October, November, as the rumors... November, when they started heating up about Pulisic and where he might end up. Sports Illustrated's Planet Football, a great show that they do, Luis Miguel Echegaray had a bit on Christian Pulisic, and he called it pretty early. Here's a clip from that show.
Chelsea. Why? 1,000%. I'll tell you what. When Mauricio Sarri was coaching Napoli and Gonzalo Higuain was sold to Juventus, the club wanted to bring in somebody of equally high stature, or at least somebody that could really represent that center forward role. Because once Gonzalo Higuain went, there was a space that needed to be filled. Mauricio Sarri said, no, I don't want anybody the same, or what I'm going to do is we're going to try and utilize and be flexible and creative in the way that we have our squad already. And I'm going to work around Dries Mertens, the Belgian star, who was really more of a wide player, and then he was pushed more center forward. And look what happened. Dries Mertens became such a great success. Still is, of course, scoring a lot of goals and being creative. The reason why I bring this example is because Mauricio Sarri is the kind of manager that sees a player, and not only does he see what he has, but he sees what he could be. And I think that given the work ethic that Mauricio Sarri imposes, the team around him, I think that he's the kind of manager that can get a lot out of Pulisic. Of course, there are teams that we want. Liverpool as well is another one that we would love. But if you're telling me Bayern Munich or Chelsea, I think that Christian Pulisic could learn a tremendous amount from a manager like Mauricio Sarri, and being next to Eden Hazard, and Jorginho, players like this of this caliber can really help him. So I think Chelsea is definitely more of an advantage than Bayern Munich. I want to see him in the Premier League also. Come on, I mean, that to me is the selfish choice.
We've talked about this on our Soccer Over There show with Nick Alifi. Maurizio Sarri is changing who Chelsea is. This is not your Jose Mourinho Chelsea. This is not a boring Chelsea. This is a Chelsea that is going to be, I think, much more forward-thinking. And Pulisic fits into that. And I thought it was great insight from Echegaray about the way Sarri sees players, and this is obviously this is not chump change being spent. You're not just throwing cash around like this for a player he might be nice, he's gonna sell some shirts, that's cool. No, you spend money like this on a player that you expect to be part of your squad, and a big part of your squad, and help you win things. So this is not a marketing move strictly. Is there a marketing element to it? Sure, I think there's a marketing element to any move that is this type of money. But it's not the overriding thing. He's not going there to fill a quota of American players. He's not going there to sell more Chelsea shirts in the United States. He's going there because Maurizio Sarri values him as a player. And probably he's going to have more of a shot because of that at Chelsea than he would have in a crowded Liverpool or Tottenham or Bayern Munich, which were three of the clubs that were mentioned at different points with Pulisic. This is, John, I think it's a good deal all the way around. I think he does fit what Maurizio Sarri wants Chelsea to be. It's just going to be down to him to perform. Yeah,
and we've talked about already expectation level, and expectations are in direct proportion to the amount of transfer fees. And personally, I'm looking forward to seeing where Sarri thinks Pulisic integrates, how he's used, how often he's used. And I look at this as the next step in seeing the growth of Pulisic, the athlete. I'm not going into the whole star American thing. I'm just looking at it specifically as footballer. And for me, I want to see how someone who is as creative as Sarri is uses Pulisic, integrates him in, and I hope that Sarri is given the rope and the patience from those above him to where he can continue to create the way that he wants Chelsea to be in his mental image. And I want to see how Pulisic is a part of that whole equation. Obviously there's the draw of the eyes, considering his Americanness and all of this. And I want to see an American flourish, but I also want to see Pulisic flourish as a young talent. And I think that having someone like Asadi there is going to challenge him every single day, have the brain work in 3 dimensions, and bring him to that next level that Sadi thinks is already there.
Look, all the hope about being given time is nice. It's not reality anymore. That's not how any of this works. Maurizio Sarri has to get Chelsea into the top 4, period. And if he doesn't, there's going to be questions about him continuing. That's the nature of a club like Chelsea. It's the nature of a big club. I think he's going to do that. I think he's going to continue. I don't expect him to be gone at the end of the year. But if things happen, they happen. And that's the life that Christian Pulisic is in now. He's not at a club that he started his career at and came through the academy and is looked at in a certain way at Dortmund. Now, he's swimming with the big boys. He's going to have to perform. And Jarrett, we talk about big clubs all the time and what that means and the pressure that goes with it. One aspect of it is managers and players don't necessarily get that time to settle in and to hopefully adapt and to hopefully get time and hopefully get that patience. At clubs like Chelsea and the big boys around the world, you don't get that anymore. It's about results now.
It is, and I'll forever argue and yell about it because, when you have a club that goes through a downturn like Manchester United went through up until, 2 weeks ago when they decided that scoring, 4 goals a game was fun. When you go through a downturn, then it feels like you lose that ability to kind of pull yourself out of it because you're not expected to just pull out of it. You're expected to teleport from bad to good immediately, and that's not the way the world works. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of pressure. There's going to be, 2 games in, well, why don't you have a goal and an assist? Or why don't you have this? Why don't you have that? I mean, y'all thought the pressure on Barco and MLS was something? Y'all ain't seen nothing.
Well, and the pressure to Barco was nothing because of the pressure that he felt at Independiente, which is one of the big clubs of Argentina. Not Boca, not River, but big. This is where Atlanta United is now in its world, is that it has the pressure on it now. You're going into a year where, we've seen some preliminary odds out of Vegas, and we were talking about those yesterday. Jeff Sherman, who does a lot of odds over in Vegas, he's got Atlanta United as the favorite going into 2019 at 5-1. A couple other very strange ones to me. The LA Galaxy at 8-1, NYCFC at 9-1. I'm absolutely baffled by those two. But Atlanta's going in as a favorite. We've talked about it, as the silly season is ramping up. The Red Bulls have lost Tyler Adams. The Galaxy, we'll go through this list. Atlanta United 5-1, Red Bulls 6-1. Red Bulls have lost Tyler Adams. You're replacing him with, right now, Christian Caceres, who has played mostly in USL. That's a big question mark. LA Galaxy, there's all kinds of question marks about them. NYCFC, who's scoring the goals? Seattle Sounders at 10-1. Are you going to be able to replace Osvaldo Alonso? LAFC 10-1. Okay. Who's playing center back? Portland Timbers 12-1. All right. Can their veterans stay strong going into another year at 30+ years old? See. Toronto FC 14-1. That's not a bad one. Honestly, that's a little tempting because Toronto will be better if they stay healthy. They also have their key players on the other side of 30 right now, outside of Josie Altidore, and he's been playing so long, it feels like he's over 30, but he's not. Toronto's going to have to stay healthy. Sporting Kansas City, 14-1. Pretty complete. I think they're a complete team that is just either one player stepping up or one addition away from being elite. DC 16-1. We know the questions about DC defensively. FC Dallas 20-1. I don't know where that's coming from. Philadelphia Union 20-1. Questions about who's going to score goals. Columbus 30-1. Real Salt Lake 40-1. There's a lot of questions about everybody else in the league right now. There's questions about Atlanta, too. You have a new manager coming in. You're probably going to see Miguel Almiron go. But you have the South American Player of the Year coming in, it sounds like. So that's not a bad replacement. There are bigger questions about everybody else in the league. So what that means is Atlanta United comes into this season in a situation like big clubs around the world face. It's put up or shut up. The results have to be there. And does that mean you have to win every trophy you play for? No. Does that mean you really need to win a trophy? Yeah. And that's the bar that is set now for this club, Jarrett. You know, this is a team that wants to lead Major League Soccer forward. This is a year that it looks like they are, outside of the manager, probably the most stable coming into the year when you compare it to the other contenders around the league. This is a team that should be very competitive for trophies in 2019.
They should be, and they should be deep enough to get to throw a solid punch at all of this, and not just MLS Cup, but all competition, U.S. Open Cup. I'm of the mindset that I think the work done with the twos is going to be very important towards being more competitive in U.S. Open Cup than you were last year. We'll see what happens with CONCACAF Champions League. You don't want to count your eggs before they hatch, but you've got a game coming up with Herediano, and who knows how that could go. You've got the pieces to compete in multiple competitions reasonably so. And I think that's where you want to be in not just competing, but the expectation of we're going to be competing in every competition consistently.
Yeah, I mean that's where you're headed, and that's where you want to be. That's where Atlanta United wants to be, and that's going to result in pressure. Pressure can be good. Pressure can be a good thing, and we've kind of talked about pressure from a club perspective, from a player perspective. You know, the pressure that is now on Christian Pulisic based off his price tag and where he is, that pressure on Chelsea as a club, and now the pressure on him to perform. You know, look at it. John, I mean, let's go back through history here. Josie Altidore has been involved in 2 of the largest transfers for American players. $10 million from Red Bulls to Villarreal in 2008, $13 million to Sunderland in 2013. Michael Bradley was $10 million to Toronto from Roma. John Brooks was the biggest one up to this point, $22 million to Wolfsburg. And now you're talking about $73 million to Christian Pulisic. And he might not be a out-and-out starter from day one when he arrives in London. Pressure can break players and break clubs, and pressure can make players and make clubs. And we're going to find out a lot about how Christian Pulisic deals with pressure in 2019. We're going to find out a lot about how Atlanta United deals with pressure in 2019. It's going to be an entertaining year with lots of storylines, and we kick it off with Pulisic headed to the Premier League.
And I was doing math as you were adding up all of the transfer fees from all the players that you mentioned. $55 million in transfer fees from everyone that you mentioned in total. Pulisic is another 20% on top of that. And I know that we're talking years and differences and all that kind of stuff, but just the sheer numbers, if you just look at that. Expectations are going to be there from a bunch of different folks, and it's going to start with the Pulisic family, no doubt. The fans are going to have an expectation. Chelsea's going to have an expectation. Saudi's going to have an expectation. But I think that from a U.S. soccer fan's perspective, I think you're going to have a lot more eyes on the Premier League. And I know that NBCSN is going to enjoy that. But here in our footprint, it's going to be just as interesting because of all of the different reasons that we've been talking about in this segment. And I'm looking forward to 2019. I'm looking forward to seeing everything that we've laid out in front of it. And we've already got two pretty decent storylines heading in, and we've only been 20 minutes into our first show.
Yeah, it's only going to continue here. I've already seen some of the takes from leading folks in American soccer worried. This is something we've talked about a lot. American soccer can't be afraid of these things. This is the real world. This is the big boy land here when it comes to soccer. And when you have players going for this kind of money, yes, there are expectations. When you have players going to the probably most watched and most talked about league in the world, yeah, there's expectations on them. And Pulisic's going to have to perform. But do we want to continue with the best of American soccer a layer below the best, a step down from the best because it's more comfortable? Or do we want to see the best of American soccer, and whether that's a Christian Pulisic from the national team or an Atlanta United going into CONCACAF and just, carrying that flag for MLS going forward, do we want to see the best of American soccer push itself to compete and to try to change narratives and deal with pressure? I do. I hope everybody does. That's something we all should be hoping for. I think being worried about how players or clubs are going to deal with this pressure or deal with these expectations, it's holding the game back. It's time to blow it up. It's time to grow up. And Christian Pulisic's taken a big, bold step here, and I like it. I do. It doesn't mean it's going to be easy. It doesn't mean there's not going to be bumps in the road. But if he's going to be that guy that I think we all think he can be, the best American player of all time, you got to do these things. You've got to take these opportunities as they come. It's not a bad thing. And if he is ready from a personality standpoint, if he is ready personally to take this on, go for it, Christian, and carry that flag proudly, and hopefully you'll have opportunities to perform, and you have to take them, and you have to go out and be that guy that Chelsea just spent a lot of money for, and we'll see if it's worth it in the long run. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back with some of your questions on a Wall Pass Wednesday after this.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, January 2nd edition, first edition of 2019. Good morning, Joe Bost, wishing us a happy new year on the Twitters. His overreaction Monday to kick it off. Let's go. Miggy watch almost over, question mark. No, not
no,
almost
it's just
over.
beginning.
Yeah, I kind of feel like we're still in the beginning stages of this, Joe. Miguel Almiron is now linked to Real Betis in Spain. Honestly, not a bad link here, to be honest.
No, I like that.
Well, okay, we've got to let's set a few ground rules about the Miguel Almiron discussion first, because there's 100 different clubs that I like that if he ended up at, but that doesn't matter. Real Betis is an interesting one because they just made a big sale recently and have money to work with. I would love to see Miguel Almiron in Serie A. I've said that from day one. I think his style of play, I think his tactical brain, I think his soccer IQ, I think his ability to play as an 8 with an attacking mindset would just absolutely be a perfect fit in Italy. There's not many Italian clubs that have the kind of money to spend on Miguel Almiron that Atlanta United wants. So I could love to see it. Doesn't mean it's going to happen. So Real Betis is a club that I wouldn't have thought many Spanish clubs could have been in this conversation because, again, price tag. But they just made a sale, so they have some money to work with. So this is one where you're talking about a club in Spain that is a step below the top, is a club that I would think Almiron would have every chance to step into a starting lineup and play. And that goes back to what we were talking about with Pulisic. The flip side of these types of deals is, okay, you got the deal. The big check has been cut. You've held up the jersey, or you will hold up the jersey. Cool. Now, why were you worth that much money? And you have to show it, because there will be other players coming after you that will be affected by how you perform. Flat out. So when that next star in Major League Soccer is being talked about in this type of conversation about cash, if Miguel Almiron goes to Betis or Newcastle or West Ham or wherever and doesn't perform and fails, that's going to be something that will hold people back and hold price tags down, because they'll say, oh, well, yeah, that was nice. He's played really well in MLS, but, yeah, the last guy you sent over didn't perform. That's an important part of this. And Betis, to me, feels like a place where I think Miguel Almiron could go and get opportunities to play and get opportunities to perform at a high level and be a big part of that club going forward, John.
Yeah, and there are a couple of other names that they're chasing, and one of them is Chicharito. And for Real Betis, because
right now.
Yeah, and West Ham set their price tag for anyone, and I think Sevilla and Betis are interested. But the point for Betis is that in the standings right now, with some money to work with, they are only 3 points behind Real Madrid for fourth in La Liga right now. And, you know, this is their shot. And I think that's why they're looking at things and spreading a bit of a wide-ranging net. And you look at an opportunity like this for a Miguel Almiron, for whomever. And I think that when this one came across for me, I'm sitting there going, okay, because of the money that was just acquired, there's an opportunity there. This one, to me, is going to be one that I'm going to be paying attention to for a little while. And I want to see where this match race goes with everybody that they have. And there are a couple of other guys that they're chasing. But this one, to me, was one that I circled when it came across a little less than a day ago. It's like, okay, all right, that's interesting. So I'm going to keep an eye on this one.
Yeah, the point about where they fit in the standings right now is actually really, really important. They are a team that 3 points behind Madrid in fourth. Sevilla is in third on 32. Betis is in sixth on 26. You have to look at it and think Real Madrid is not going to keep doing what they've been doing, but we've been saying that for a while. So, there's also Alaves, who is in fifth. Getafe is in seventh on 25. Then it's 4 points back from Betis to eighth in Valencia. So Betis is in the mix potentially to get into a Champions League spot. They're also a team, when you look at what Miguel Almiron could bring to the table and you look at the clubs around Betis, they're not scoring a lot of goals. I mean, you've scored 20 in 17 matches in league play. You've only conceded 19, which is impressive. But you've only scored 20. And you look at Alaves, who scored 19 and conceded 17. You look at Getafe, 18 goals scored, 13 conceded. It's very, very tight with these teams. It's one moment in a game that is deciding it. It's that special player or that special bit of speed that Miguel Almiron brings to the table that can unlock things. So for Betis, who is looking at this is an opportunity to get into the top four, and this is what every team in this type of spot chases, Jarrett. I mean, we go through it all the time where you're trying to become one of the big boys. Well, in Europe, the way you do that is you get into the Champions League, and you get into the Champions League consistently because you get that money that comes along with it. Betis is looking at this as an opportunity that outside of Barca and Real Madrid and now Atletico, Betis can be in that conversation if they can get in and maintain their spot. And Miguel Almiron, what he brings to the table in terms of sheer game-breaking speed, and I'd say over these 2 years in Atlanta, an improved ability to affect the game going forward, he could be that missing piece for them.
I mean, it could be. It reminds me of, I guess, Monaco is the first thing that pops into my head. 6-7 years ago, when Monaco just spent all of the money to try and, get up and try and get up to weight with to PSG and find a permanent spot. Didn't really work long term. Monaco's not bad, but yeah, it's a good first step. Almiron by himself doesn't put you in that threshold, but players like that, multiple players like that, in the right system with the right purchases, long term, yeah, absolutely can. And there's plenty of pressure about that, though, because I think when you make that decision, hey, we're going to start spending money and we're going to try and make a run to becoming one of the big boys. It costs a lot of money to do that. It costs a lot of money for a while, and if it doesn't work out, it's a lot of money lost. And if it doesn't work out, it can get sideways financially in Europe, especially.
It's a risk.
Yeah, Europe getting sideways in Europe ain't a good thing either.
Yeah, go ask Leeds about how that went for them.
Or Mike Piazza.
Oh, yeah, well, that's a different scale, but yeah, Leeds I think is a prime example here of a club that they were a semifinalist in the Champions League in the 2000s. And went all the way down to the third division not that long ago. So it can go sideways. But if you want to get into that upper echelon, you have to take your opportunities when they're there. And Miguel Almiron, for the type of money we're talking about, and The Guardian had him in their top 10 transfer targets of the winter window, and they had him at £23 million, which is, just under the $30 million number that's been bandied around. What is 23 million pounds now? About $28 million, somewhere in that ballpark. I don't know the current exchange rate. It's fine. We're good. That's a big move. That's not in isolation oh man, if this doesn't work, we're going under and we're going bankrupt kind of move. It's not that big of a move. It feels like a smart play for Betis, and Michael Ruiz was asking our thoughts on Betis and the Almiron link. And he also asked, does the Pulisic transfer affect the price tag for Almiron in any way? I don't think it does yet. I think over time, when you start to combine all of these things, and like we talked about in the first segment, I think combining these two moves. Let's say Miguel Almiron goes somewhere in Europe for $28 million, and Pulisic goes to Chelsea for 72, and both have success. Maybe they don't light it up and become a player of the year in their respective leagues, but let's say they both have good success, and people feel like, oh, good value for the money. I think both of those combined will affect the next transfers from, U.S. men's national team players and from Major League Soccer. I think they will. Just like I think if they go and don't perform, they will affect future transfers in a negative way. And that's going to be, part of the key here. And Darren Eales has talked about this. This is a situation where that does play into where Atlanta United wants Miguel Almiron to go. The price tag is part A, but they want him to end up in a spot where he can have success. Because if you sell him just for the price tag and you sell him to a club where he's not going to play or he's not going to be a good fit and it's going to be a failure, that's affecting future business. And the way Atlanta United has set themselves up, that future business is part of the P&L for Atlanta United going forward. You want to be able to make future sales. So the way you make future sales is you get your sales right. This is going to be, opportunity one to do that.
Yeah, I mean, the last thing that you want to do is sit there and just sell someone off for the sake of selling them off and setting that reputation, either internal or external. It's like, yeah, we're just going to do it and chase after the check with all the zeros on it and not benefit your business long term. So no, that's the most sound way to do things, because you're thinking about present business, you're thinking about future business, you're thinking about reputation in the marketplace. There's a lot of things at play, and looking out for the player's interest and your interest really only benefits everyone involved, the seller, the sellee, and the individual.
We'll get into more of your Wall Pass Wednesday in the next segment, but Domer Donaldson had a response about Chelsea and Sarri, and responding to our buddy Nick Alifi, who I'm expecting a hot drop on Pulisic to Chelsea, Nick. I'm just going to go ahead and throw that out there. I'm expecting it. Domer says, I just hope Abramovich gives Sarri the time to build a squad to fit the system. They're already playing more exciting football than under Mourinho and Conte. It will only get better as the team advances in Sarri's system. And this goes back to what we talked about. Yeah, I hope so too. But if there is not success along the way, all the hopes in the world don't mean anything, because you're going to have to perform. And that's what it's going to come down to, is he's going to have to perform enough. Sarri is going to have to perform enough along the way to continue to get these opportunities and build and build and build. And that's the process at this point. That's the pressure that he's under. That's the pressure that Chelsea's under. And that's now the pressure that Christian Pulisic will be under when he reports to Chelsea in London in the summer. Great piece of business by Dortmund, by the way, to be able to sell a player who is not a first-choice starter for you for this kind of money, but still keep them for the rest of the current campaign. That's pretty brilliant from Borussia Dortmund, if you ask me, Jarrett. I don't think many clubs in the world could pull that one off.
Nope. Hey, look, it ain't just about bringing in money, about doing good bits of business all the way around, sending money out, and just good job doing a good bit of business.
They keep selling, they keep reloading, and they keep performing. It's honestly, when you look at models for an Atlanta United, and yeah, we're going to have lots of Ajax comparisons going forward, as we should. That makes a ton of sense, and it was, it's a big reason why you go get Frank de Boer. Borussia Dortmund is another one in the fact that they're a club that develops talent, moves it on, reloads, reinvests, and it's next man up. And they keep performing at a very high level. So now Germany's a little different, because Dortmund will always be looked at as the number 2 to Bayern Munich, because Bayern's at another level in terms of what they're spending and all that. So it's a little bit different type of pressure for Dortmund. because they're not expected to win the title every year. For Atlanta and for Ajax, they are looked at as a club that should and could win the title every year. And that changes it a bit, because sometimes you might have to factor that in, where Dortmund can say, well, we're going to be second anyway. Let's go ahead and make this move. That will affect it a little bit for Atlanta going forward. But these are the types of models that you're looking at in terms of clubs that can make sales when it's the right time to make a sale. And obviously this was the right time to make a sale because you're not losing a starter. And you got this kind of money for it. You have to be able to pull the trigger at the right time, knowing that you have someone on the way up, or you have someone from outside your system that you can bring in to replace this player and continue to play at the same high level. That's a huge part of it, and it's something for Atlanta United fans to look at going forward. Let's take a break. More Wall Pass Wednesday after this.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. Ah, that's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Appolinsky & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Appolinsky at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Appolinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as Legal Elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here, January 2nd edition, Wall Pass Wednesday. We're taking your questions and comments throughout the show. Jason Longshore, John Nelson, Jarrett Smith with you this morning. And guys, let's get into the news that dropped yesterday. Atlanta United's Academy, its U19 squad, will be headed to Sindelfingen, Germany to play in the Mercedes-Benz Junior Cup. This is a tournament that launched in 2002, and the U19s will be playing alongside Bayern Munich, Rapid Vienna, Hertha Berlin, Rangers, Liverpool, Schalke, Stuttgart. That's a pretty nice group of squads that the U19s will be playing against in this tournament. We'll get a schedule and if it's possible to watch these games as we go. But Josh Eisenberg had a question, and would love to get your take on it, Jarrett. Do you think George Bello makes this trip with the 19s since it's in January?
He's thinking.
What do you think, John?
I don't know. My gut is to tell me I don't think so because of everything going on this particular continent, and the need for him here, I would say, kind of precludes a fantastic opportunity with the academy. But my gut tells me he's going to be here as opposed to being there.
I don't know if he's going to be in either spot. He could be with the U.S. Youth National Teams in Lakewood Ranch, Florida, as well. They have a camp starting January 4th through the 13th for the U17s, the U19s, and the U20s. That would end right before Atlanta United training camp opens, so maybe that's the better fit. We'll see. I'm not ruling it out, though, that he goes with the 19s to play in this. Another question that people have had was Andrew Carlton. Would he potentially go with this group? And I'm not 100% sure on the age cutoffs. I think Andrew would be eligible to play. I think both are possible. And we've seen that with development academy situations where Atlanta United has utilized professional players in Generation Adidas Cup play and, development academy playoffs. This is a big part of it for these young players where a Bello, a Carlton, a Chris Goslin, Diego Lopez, who's on an Atlanta United 2 contract. When these guys play with the academy, they go from being a young part of the squad to a leader and a player that the rest of the squad is looking up to and expecting to perform. So that's a good thing, too. That's a good thing for a Bello. And it was interesting watching Bello with the U17s at the Generation Adidas Cup, where you could see players deferring to Bello, and he took that on and really, tried to step up and become that guy for that team. So that was very cool to see. Will he get that opportunity here? I don't know. We'll wait and see what the roster could look like and how these games could go. But I'm intrigued by the opportunity that it could be. And he wouldn't miss too much of training camp. I don't know the schedule for this tournament offhand just yet. I don't know when it would end, but you're 8 teams. You're playing a round robin, I would assume, with probably a knockout stage of some sort. So, could he go over there for 3-4 games if they start in the next week? Yeah, I think it's possible. And if he comes into training camp a week late, that's okay. That's not a big deal. It's not going to affect too much just yet. What I'm more intrigued about, and I think maybe what will affect these types of answers, is what is that training camp schedule going to look like for Atlanta United? We know it's going to start January 14th. Is it going to be heavy on matches, whether they're behind closed doors or public? Is it going to be heavy on work behind the scenes? We don't know yet. And that's going to be the part that probably, drives these decisions. Do U.S. Youth Internationals go to the camp at Lakewood Ranch basically as like a pre-training camp opportunity, or do they stay in Atlanta? Does Bello or any of the other guys make the trip with the U19s to play in this prestigious tournament, or do they stay in Atlanta and train with the first team? It might be a player-by-player basis, but I think also that overall plan for preseason with the first team is going to affect these decisions, and that hasn't been made public yet. The other side of one of the reasons it probably hasn't been made public yet is Frank DeBoer is on his way to Atlanta right now. I believe there is flight tracking happening on the Twitters at the moment. And I've seen people saying he could land at 1 o'clock. I've seen people saying he could land at 5 o'clock. I don't know. I don't know what flight he was on, but he did post a picture saying he was on his way. So a lot of things I think will start to ramp up tomorrow, maybe today.
Yeah, once it's like, dude, you've landed, unpack, and get over here.
Yeah, more than anything, as these decisions start being made public, I don't think they're waiting on decisions to be made at this point. I think it's more about, okay, now we can go public with what the schedule is going to look like. Now we can go public with X, Y, and Z. That's really more of what it is. But Frank DeBoer will be on the ground in Atlanta before the day is done, and that's another good thing going forward as he gets to know the city he'll be calling home for a little while.
And I would like to make a bit of a personal request for those of you who are heading to Hartsfield-Jackson International Teleport. Send us your photos if you're going to go. Just shoot us the vibe on Twitter. Just let us see what you see, and when you hang out, and when Frank DeBoer comes out with all of his luggage, help the man out with his luggage on the way to whatever car they're going to give him. So, give him the welcome that the South is well known for, and for Atlanta United fans are well known for too. I can't wait to see what the pictures are that are going to float out of Hartsfield today.
Yeah, I mean, I would be. Well, actually, if Sergey Lafleur is correct on the Twitters, he would be in the E terminal. I would have thought the international terminal. So I don't know. International terminal would be a little bit easier to deal with. The other side, it's going to be a little more crowded. So I don't know.
Delta's international. Yeah, it looks like, according to Jay, the landing for the one Delta flight, I don't know about the KLM flight, but the one Delta flight looks like it's international terminal.
Yeah, he's posted one that was in the E terminal, though. So that's not the international terminal. So I don't know. I would assume international, but yeah, I don't know what flight he's on. So I can't help you with that. It will be interesting to see if Atlanta United fans make their way down and say hello to the new manager as he sets foot in Atlanta for the first time. Let's take a break. We'll get into a couple more of your Well Past Wednesday questions to close out hour number 1 after this.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Wrapping up hour number 1 on Soccer Down Here. First episode of 2019. It's a Wall Pass Wednesday, so if you have questions, send them our way on Twitter at Soccer Down Here. A lot of conversation about Christian Pulisic and his move from Borussia Dortmund to Chelsea. Tafka TLC shares a great piece from ESPN and Raphael Honigstein about the deal. Chelsea wanted to get it done in the summer of 2018. Borussia Dortmund wasn't ready yet. They basically had the framework for it done by the autumn, and that would make sense if you're announcing it on January 2nd, that it was all but done going into this. Dortmund didn't want it announced yet. It's back and forth. Tafka says it would explain the reduced playing time, protect your investment mentality. I would also look at it the other way from Dortmund. It would be, he's not going to be here, so let's go ahead and look at who's up next. And that's why you've seen other guys get opportunities, too. You know you have him. You know you can turn to him if you need him, but you also need to see what else you have. And that's been probably a big part of this. But looks like it was in the works for a while, and all the different talk about Pulisic going to Liverpool or Tottenham or wherever else was smokescreen. He was always headed to Chelsea since last summer, it sounds like.
And those are the best deals, the ones that you can sit there and keep quiet and, you trust the dude with the handshake at the other side of the table and let everybody else just sit there and talk things through and sit there, hey, what about this, this, and this? And everything's all done, and you just get to work on the next stage of everything.
Tafka also throws in an interesting one, Jarrett, that Miguel Almiron, if he ends up at Betis, he could be playing next to or replacing Andres Guardado, which is kind of interesting if you've been following Atlanta United from the on-the-field days when Andres Guardado, according to John Sutcliffe of ESPN, was a done deal to come to Atlanta. Didn't happen. Went to Betis, and now Miguel Almiron could end up being the guy who either replaces him or plays next to him at Betis.
I look forward to Andres Guardado being linked to MLS clubs until he is DeMarcus Beasley's age.
So where's he going to go now? Is he going to go LAFC? Is Guardado going to go to LAFC? I remember that one popping up.
Yeah, that would make sense. Houston, honestly, would have made sense.
Houston would still make sense, actually, yeah.
Yeah. There's eventually probably, imagine, North Carolina gets a club, Charlotte gets a club, he's linked to Charlotte down the road. See where else.
Link him to Miami now. Go ahead.
End of his career, link him to South Georgia
Miami's
Tormenta.
Yeah, there you go. Miami's not a market where bringing in a Mexican player would really make any sense. There's so many other players that you would look at if you're in Miami that Guardado doesn't have the value there. Just like he wouldn't have the same value at other parts of the league. But a Houston? Yeah. And, I mean, we've talked about Chicharito with Houston. Guardado would be a lot cheaper. And he would be a player that actually fits a pretty big need for them in the middle of the park. That'd be a smart move, Oscar De La Hoya, if you're listening.
Come on, Golden Boy.
Yeah, we will
snap to it.
We will see what happens with Houston, because this is an interesting campaign for the Dynamo after not making the playoffs but winning the Open Cup. They start in CONCACAF Champions League, and this is a squad that, if they're healthy, it's not a deep squad, but if they're healthy, they're absolutely a team, to me, that can make a run in the Champions League. And I think Wilmer Cabrera is the type of manager who can achieve that. I think the players you have, and when you have a guy like Mauro Manota scoring goals the way he did in 2018, you're always a threat. And the style of play is not going to be, that big of a departure for you. I think Houston is an interesting CONCACAF Champions League team to keep an eye on. Maybe the MLS season will be a little difficult for them because of their lack of depth. But in a CONCACAF situation, if they stay healthy, watch out for the Dynamo. They could pull a surprise or two. Let's take a break to wrap up hour number 1. We'll be back with another hour of Wall Pass Wednesday. Questions, comments, everything you guys want to get into. Share them with us on Twitter at SoccerDownHere. We'll be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. That's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Hour number 2 of Soccer Down Here. Second hour of 2019. I think we ended up doing, I didn't go back and go show by show because, we had weird things that would happen from time to time, but I think we ended up doing at least 520 hours of SDH in 2018, y'all. That's ridiculous.
It's crippling.
No.
It's not. Like, that's when you think about it outside of context, when you think about that number, you're like, oh dear God, how did we do that? We should be dead. You don't think about it being spread out, 5 days a week, but yeah, that's just, it's a lot of time.
It is.
It's a lot of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, there's a few things, and there'll be more in 2019 as we add more stuff. If you haven't checked out our Patreon over at patreon.com/soccerdownhere, please do so. We'll be adding new stuff there for members only. It starts tomorrow. We're going to have our first Atlanta soccer history workshop session. Don't know what it's going to end up being. Don't know if it's going to be book, documentary, pieces of all of the above, but we're going to start really digging into Atlanta soccer history, and you guys are going to be part of that project. It's not just us saying stuff. It's going to be you guys who have joined us on Patreon as part of that workshop and helping to flesh things out, telling us what you're interested in, what you want to see us dig into, and then talking through it as we research it and add elements to it. There's some cool things coming together at the moment on the Atlanta soccer history front, kind of all at once. So it's the prime opportunity to tell the story and tell it in the correct way because, I always see these articles and different things, whether they're local or national, that just get it wrong. And this is something, honestly, American soccer history at the moment. I remember things that I read about the North American Soccer League when I was a kid or as I was studying it and trying to learn more. And just now that I've studied more and known more and talked to people more, I'm like, that's just 100% false. Like, that's not what happened. And that's the story that's out there. So if some of this stuff is going to get told the right way, we really do need to do it now because, you don't want to lose this history just to the sands of the hourglass. You want it to be told in the correct way. So that's something we're trying to do here in Atlanta, and we'll be working with you guys to do that on our Patreon page. Also, this year, 2019, and we'll get it started this month, we're going to start a weekly women's soccer show. And it's going to be a little different than Soccer Over There or other shows we've done that have been, pretty laser focused on a format and a specific way of talking about the topic. Because women's soccer, there's so many different elements to it. There's the NWSL. There's the Women's World Cup this summer, and we will have just like we did the updates on the World Cup for 2018, we're going to do those daily for 2019 as well on the women's side. But the women's soccer show is going to be broader than just league updates or friendlies for the national team or what the roster looks like and this and that. We want it to be bigger and broader and really capture all elements of women in the game, because it's something that I think has been marginalized far too much in just soccer as a whole, not just in the United States, probably more so in other countries, but in the United States as well. And that needs to change. There are some amazing things happening in the women's game and some very cool stories that are out there, whether it's on the field or off or in the stands or in the in a scouting department like Lucy Rushton, whatever. There are so many different things happening for it, and we're going to try to tell as many of those stories as we can in a weekly women's soccer show that will be getting started this month. One story that I'd like to tell that the Guardian recognized this past week was their footballer of the year, and they look at it from a bigger perspective than just who had a very good season. They look at it from, who had a big impact on the game, and they picked Bunny Shaw, who is a player that you probably haven't heard of. She is one of the forwards for the Jamaican national team, who's going to their first World Cup in 2019. She also plays at the University of Tennessee, and she has done so much to change the trajectory of women's soccer in Jamaica. Those stories are amazing, and we'll be talking a lot about Jamaica as we get into the World Cup and covering that. Other stuff, too, on SDH. We'll be adding more things as we go. Hopefully some very cool things covering USL Championship and USL League One to keep you guys updated on those stories, along with the lower divisions, along with Soccer for Good, along with Soccer Over There. All this different stuff because, you guys have given us a platform to do this because you listen, you interact, you engage with us, you share what we're doing, you talk to other people about it, and we couldn't do any of this without y'all. So 520 hours in 2018, with probably ended up more than that, but we'll say 520. We'll say 550. I think we'll be well above that in 2019, and can't wait to continue to ramp things up and add to what we're doing. It's going to be a lot of fun, and there's a lot of cool things to talk about in the soccer world right now, and we're going to try to do that with you guys on a regular basis all year long. So can't do it without y'all. Thanks. We really appreciate it.
And that's been the fun part of building this. And later this month, we celebrate our 3rd birthday. And to go from an hour where we knew at some point we were going to go to 2 hours on a daily basis. Didn't think it was going to happen after only 4 months. But because of everything going on in the South and the Southeast and how it's been growing, and how the sport in and of itself has been growing, because we've been talking about things in Chattanooga and in Statesboro and in Nashville and in Memphis and in Birmingham and in Greenville and Myrtle Beach and the Panhandle and the Gulf Coast and all that kind of stuff, to be able to tell all of these stories and to be front and center for a lot of them from the absolute beginning has been the really cool thing for me, just to be able to share all of this with everybody else. And, someone in Northern Alabama, Lewis Martin, who has been listening from the absolute beginning and has been sharing stuff with us from there, and hearing things from Statesboro and the commonality of it all as the entire sport grows, as a group. I mean, the stuff that we do in Asheville, catching up with Asheville City. It's been great to see how it's been going in all of these communities, and our philosophy of rising tides lifts all boats. It's just, for me, it's been cool to be a part of the build, and I know that there's a lot more out there for us to do, and it's going to be fun to develop it and see where it goes.
Thanks, everybody who dug into the Mercedes-Benz Junior Cup. It's a very different format than people were thinking. So it's probably a very different conversation about if a George Bellows going or if an Andrew Carlton's going. It's small-sided. It's short, quick matches. It's just a couple of days. It's more of a showcase type of deal than a like a traditional youth tournament about 11v11 and playing over a period of time, like a World Cup or a Champions League type of format. So it's a whole different type of concept. It's super cool, and so many big-time players have come through it, but it's a different conversation altogether than what we were having earlier. So thanks to Waffle House United and the Colonel for digging into that. It's over just a couple of days. I believe it starts January 5th. And continues on the 6th. There's a group stage. Top 2 play a semi and a final. The bottom 2 play placement games. Short matches, small-sided. It will be a different type of test for these players than what we were talking about. So could Bello go? Sure. I mean, it's a couple of days. It's not as big of a commitment, and he'd be back in time for training camp here. Could Carlton go? Could Goslin go? Could anybody go? Yeah, absolutely. And it'd be an opportunity for them to showcase themselves. So that could be very cool. But different situation altogether. I know there was a lot of TV coverage in Germany for it last year. I don't know what type of video, what type of if game footage or highlights or what we'll be able to see. So stay tuned. We'll try to grab that for you and share it as much as we can when it gets underway on the 5th.
Also this morning, let's see, we've had some folks with questions across the board. Tyler Rice. Let's go ahead and start with Tyler for hour number 2. He says, realistically, what amount will Frank DeBoer be able to implement in his demands and tactics to players with the very short period of training before the CONCACAF League match in Costa Rica? Hashtag Well Past Wednesday.
It's not that short, to be honest. I mean, it's short, but it's 5 weeks. You're gonna have some fitness and things to that, but look. I would say this to Tyler, and I'd say it to a lot of people who are worried about these sorts of things. I don't think Frank DeBoer is going to come in and say, hey, guys, the way you played the last 2 years, forget all of that, and now we're going to do something completely different. I really don't think that's going to be the case. And when you look at their styles of play and you look at what Frank DeBoer has shown during his time at Ajax and at other clubs, and you look at what Tata Martino showed with Atlanta United, there's a ton of similarity. Like I think there's going to be a few things that change, and I think the biggest one, honestly, to me, and Jared, I want to get your opinion on this. I think it's more than anything, it's a fresh set of eyes. And, when you had Tata Martino with this group for 2 years, he had players that he trusted, and he had players that he relied on that he felt very comfortable with. Frank DeBoer coming in, having not worked with this group before, not worked with any of these players before, might see things differently. And you could see those rotations and those lineups and those positions change a little bit just because of a new, fresh perspective from DeBoer.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't mean anything bad. It can unlock some things. And you might have, situations where, a guy doesn't, feature as much this time around. There's really no way to tell right now. It just depends on what DeBoer sees on the field and what he takes away from it all. So, I mean, it's kind of a waiting game right now. I know that feels like it might be a cop out to some, but I mean, honestly, at this point, you're waiting to see what he sees and what we see, and what bit of preseason you get, what bit of training, the words that come out of training camp. And then, for better or worse, you won't have to wait really too long in the grand scheme of things to find out.
No, I think you're going to see this team play some matches, probably more than they have in preseason. And they might not be public. They might be closed-door matches. But I think you're going to see this team active in those situations so DeBoer can see how players respond, both to the tweaks that he's making to the way the team plays, but also just so he can see with his own eyes, how George Bello deals with pressure, how Tito Villalba deals with being asked to do something a little different, seeing how Joseph Martinez operates on the field. And there is always something to be said, like the world has changed and scouting has changed to where you can watch video on anything and you can see it from a million different angles. All that's great. You have to see it with your own eyes because you pick up different things that you can't from a screen. You pick up different reactions. You pick up different things off the ball. You pick up moments that you have to be there to see it. So I think he's going to want to put these guys in these situations. And one way he'll do it, too, even when they're not facing outside competition, is playing matches internally, playing matches against Atlanta United, too, and moving guys over to that group to see how they fit there and bringing academy guys up to play with Atlanta United, too. Playing those types of scenarios and putting some pressure on these games internally. That's how DeBoer's going to get this team ready. it's going to be an interesting run here into Champions League because of the managerial shift. I'm a little better about it because I don't think the tactics dramatically shift. So that helps. You know, if you were going from an attack-minded perspective to a defensive perspective, then yeah, you're going to have some issues, or vice versa. This is more of a tweak, more subtle changes that will continue to occur, I think, as the season goes on. But that'll make it a lot easier for De Boer, for Atlanta United to have success in Champions League, because I don't think you're going to dramatically shift what's going on. And we're getting a lot of questions now, and this will continue, and it'll happen. It's all good. Trey Morrison asked about Bello going to the tournament in Germany and how that would affect his time with the first team. One, I think the Germany tournament's a completely different animal than you would consider it normally, so I wouldn't worry about that at all. But also the second part is how young players in general are going to need this time with De Boer. Again, I don't think it's going to be a huge difference. I think for the young players, the key will be impressing him and just impressing him as players. Like, they know how to play in this system. Tata Martino and the instruction that he gave these guys, and Scott Donnelly and Tony Annan and all of it combined, these are players who have the tools to play in the system. I don't think that's the issue at all. I think it's more about these young players showing Frank De Boer that he can rely on them. You know, it's what we've talked about with Bello, with Carlton, Goslin as well. You have to prove it to the first team manager that you can do what he's asking you to do, but you can also deal with the increased pace of the match and the increased pressure from playing in these situations. I think all the building blocks are there for these guys, John. I don't think you need another 5 weeks for George Bello to become an MLS player. I think he just has to show Frank De Boer that he's a guy that can be counted on in these situations, and he'll get his opportunities in preseason to do that, I would imagine.
Yeah, when you were setting the toss up, the words that came into my head were that exactly what you said, is that it's like, all right, I am this individual, I can do this on the pitch, and this is who I am, and this is how I can help. And I think that comes across the board for everybody. But yeah, you set it up for me perfectly. Let me just sit there and sit there and go, yes, exactly. So a very long answer to a very short answer to what it should have been. You're absolutely 100% correct. It's like, okay, this is what George Bello thinks he can do. Time to go out there and do it.
But I mean, I think the important thing here is that, and people need to understand it, you're not coming in and asking George Bello or Andrew Carlton or any other young player in this group, you're not asking them to play in a way that they have never played before. And that's the important thing here. It's not about learning a new way to play. It's not about learning how to be a professional. It's not about learning tactics from scratch. It's not about any of that, because the system is not that different, and these guys have been well prepared by a great manager in Tata Martino. You know, they know what is going to be expected of them as athletes and as soccer players with their soccer IQ. That part is that, you know, that it's I think for De Boer coming in, it's okay. I know the foundation has been laid. I know how Tata Martino worked. You know, I'm sure he's watched training sessions because they video all those. I'm sure he's watched it. I'm sure he's watched how these guys work. I'm sure he's watched every game they've played. I'm sure he's read every report that's there about how these guys have played. It's just about showing him to his face and for his own eyes to see, yeah, I'm ready for this. You can count on me, coach. It's as simple as that. I think we're a little more worried about, you know, how is he going to pick up the system? Is he going to gel with the team? you have a lot of continuity coming back, John, and you've got a lot of guys who have played in the system where Tata Martino, I mean, we said it before. What was his system? How are you going to define Tata Martino's system? Because it changed throughout his time here. He trained soccer players to be able to play in a variety of systems. So
yep.
I'm not even worried about that. I think it's just, are you ready to show somebody new that, hey, I'm ready for this, coach. It's my time. And you got to beat somebody out to do that.
And this happens in every industry. New boss shows up, and you've got to show what you can do all over again. And I think that the confidence that in the athletes that we've seen over the last handful of years is going to be there, and it's going to continue to be there. And to show the new guy who already knows a lot about you, yes, I'm here to continue to do my work the best way that I know how, with the ways that you're looking to do them. So for me, I'm looking forward to seeing how everyone integrates with one another all over again under the De Boer idea of doing things, and the added emphasis of those who are on their way up. As you know, we use Bello as the example here. On their way up, both in age and experience, to sit there and say, yep, I'm ready for this. To see you, Miles Robinson, sit there and say, yep, I'm ready for whatever you want to throw in front of me. For a Jose Hernandez, those younger individuals, for a Barco, for a Carlton, for a whomever. I'm looking forward to seeing how these young guys want to prove themselves to Frank De Boer, to sit there and say, yep, you can depend on me at any moment to do anything, as I continue to grow as an athlete in the system that I've been a part of for these last couple of years.
And keep in mind with Barco, he is with Argentina's U20s. And when you talk about, will they release a guy? Will they let a young player go play with a youth national team or an academy team or what have you? Barco's with Argentina's U20s. He will miss the beginning of training camp because of that. So you have to, these things happen. This is all part of the game. So I don't think it's a bad thing at all. I think, getting these opportunities is a good thing for the club as a whole. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back, and we're going to talk about Jarrett's piece over at 929thegame.com. We're going to tell him when he's wrong and when he's right in his piece. The 2018 Atlanta United superlatives is out, according to Jarrett Smith. We'll break it down after this.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Polinsky is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here. January 2nd edition, Wall Pass Wednesday, and we'll finish up everything this morning with your Wall Pass Wednesday questions and comments and such. But we've got to talk about Jarrett's article over at 929thegame.com, his 2018 Atlanta United Awards. He needs a name for these, so if you want to at him, go ahead.
The happiest thing anybody's added me for in probably 6 months.
Yeah, probably. Have at it. Give him a name for these going forward. But let's get into Jarrett's awards and see what he got right and what he got wrong. Best newcomer, Franco Escobar.
I mean, you had a number of newcomers this year who were good.
You did.
It wasn't clean cut necessarily, but hey. By the end of what I took into account of it, honestly, was Tata at the end of the playoffs saying this is the player we signed. Eric Rometti made this much closer than he should have because he refused to come off the field. But
I think Franco, if Rometti had come in at the beginning of the season, it could have been him. But Escobar being here all year and his progression from day one to the end and his performance in the postseason. Yeah, I'm with you. I think it has to be Escobar.
Yeah, I won't be upset if you go the other way around it. I'll accept either answer.
I think it's just sheer time. I think Escobar, you got to see a broader range of his involvement. And as good as Rometti was in the postseason, I would be willing to say that Franco Escobar was the best player for Atlanta in the postseason, period, all the way across the board. And that would win the award for him for sure. Next award, and you do have a name for this one, the Carlos Carmona Most Underrated Award.
Yeah.
You gave it to Darlington Nagbe.
Yeah, who basically filled the same spot. Nagbe had 2 assists on the year, no goals. We'll get to that in a minute. But just kept things churning in a similar way that Carmona did last year. Just kind of keeps swimming. Keeps the rudder moving on this Mississippi Steamboat. So, I mean, you go back and look at how many things started with him either forcing a turnover because he's better defensively than we were ever led to believe from his time in Portland because he didn't have to do anything because he had Diego Chara behind him. That or just some stupid key pass that he played that he had no business playing so beautifully as he did. A lot of times it was Nagbe on the hockey assist, but not on the on the books assist. When he was there, he just kept things going. The one that always sticks out to me is the game in Colorado where he had like 100% passing rating in his first game back from injury. Like, it was just no big deal.
Nice. Your runner-up for this was Jeff Lorenowitz.
Yeah.
I will go off the board and say a contender for the most underrated award for Atlanta United in 2018. Brad Kazan.
Yeah, I would accept that as well.
Like, nobody talks about Brad Kazan and how good he was.
Yeah.
I mean, now you see like people saying, here's your top 5 goalkeepers for the U.S. men's national team, and Brad Kazan isn't listed. And your top 5 goalkeepers in the league, and Brad Kazan isn't listed. He's so important to this team, and he doesn't get enough credit. So he would be in the running for me, and I could see a scenario where he got my vote.
Yeah, I got no problem with that. Loreno, it's just the way he continued to lock down the midfield and then would drop into the back line when needed, and just you never heard a peep out of him. Anytime it went south on him, the next time out it was really, really good. And I feel like once Rometti came into the fold, especially, he wasn't as much of a talking point, but Jeff Lorenowitz was really good. Just week in, week out, just the team dad did yeoman's work. The only thing he didn't do is show up with orange slices and Capri Suns.
Yeah, Larinowitz and his move to the back line at the end was critical, and a lot of that's due, again, to Remedi and how important he was. Breakthrough performance. You gave it to Mikey Ambrose.
Yeah, because a guy who would, a third-round pick in the expansion draft played like an MLS regular and looked like he belonged until his knee blew up. And then, and I mentioned in there, like, he goes down and turns into Kevin Kratz one magical night for Atlanta United, too. Like, it was no big deal.
That was funny.
It was amazing. Like, that game was amazing. I think that was the Toronto 2 game. I think that was just the shootout against Toronto up at Coolray Field. But, yeah, Mike Ambrose just went out and did the job. He waited till he got his chance, and then he took advantage of it. Just played big. I go back to the Orlando game where ball's trickling across the end line. He just jogs across the end line and, clears it out before Orlando can get to it. Just
whoa. The way you just described that is not what happened. He did not just jog across the end line and clear it away. He sprinted across the end line and two-footed, studs up, tackled the ball, the player, whatever was there. He probably took a chunk out of the turf while he was at it. Give Mikey Ambrose some credit, sir.
I give Mikey Ambrose all the credit in the world. I was genuinely concerned Mikey Ambrose was going to go in this expansion draft until the Greg Garza thing came down, and I'm assuming that was. I am building a nice little summer home on the hill that Atlanta United was. The idea that Atlanta United was more willing to lose Garza than Ambrose, probably just because of cost, if nothing else. But I was worried Ambrose might be a guy you lose in the expansion draft because of what he showed, and he's still, I think, just 25 years old. Still got the world in front of him.
Okay, you also would have accepted Miles Robinson. I'll give you another one. George Bello. Breakthrough performance for George Bello, who we did not factor into playing any minutes in MLS in 2018. And he probably wouldn't have if Garza had been healthy and Ambrose had been healthy. But he made the most of the opportunities in front of him in 2018, where started with the second team, got hurt, played some academy stuff as well early, comes back from injury and starts training with the first team, plays a little bit with the second team to stay sharp, and then he came in D.C. and did well, and then he gets his goal against RSL. I mean, the kid did good in 2018, and I would say he was the breakthrough performer, maybe even above your two choices, Jarrett.
That's fair. I'm not gonna go to war on it. I'll accept it. For me, Miles was right there, and I didn't want to leave him off of there entirely.
100% agree.
Because you get to the end of the year, you had Miles Robinson to start in one of the biggest home matches of the season against New York City in the playoffs. You hand him opportunities in big games, and the steps we saw him take with the twos this year, going from being a hyper-athletic center back with a lot of potential to a hyper-athletic center back who can command the back line. Miles Robinson was not just with the first team, but the jumps he made with the twos all around. It was very impressive. But yeah, I got no beef with Bello. And if we wanted to do a breakthrough for the twos, Andrew Carlton's growth with the twos this year was awesome to watch too.
Yeah, he's in that. All right, goal of the year. You took the easy way out. You did not give it to a specific goal of the year for the goal of the year category. You gave it to Tito Villalba just in general because he's ridiculous.
Yeah, and at the very end, I pretty much am like, yeah, I mean, if you wanted to describe this as that most impressive, the time that Tito did the most Tito thing, the answer is San Jose. I mean, okay,
the answer to goal of the year is the goal against San Jose, and
yes,
it was voted as such by Atlanta United fans, and I know some people didn't care for that, but sorry, you guys are wrong. The San Jose goal was the best goal of the year.
Us now.
It didn't, but the San Jose goal was the best goal of the year because that was ridiculous. And
it was a one touch. It was first time.
And it gave that team a chance to get 3 points in that match. Combining the two things, That was the goal of the year for me. So, yeah, I think this will be the Tito Villalba Goal of the Year award just going forward. I think it has to be.
He scored the best individual goal of the year. He scored the most impressive goal of the year based off a long run next to Miguel Almiron killing Jonathan Spector and leaving his body on the floor at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. He was on the receiving end of the best team goal of the year up in Philadelphia.
I think Jonathan Spector's option was not picked up that night when Miguel Almiron just left him in the dust. I think it was communicated that, yes, your option is gone.
It was sealed, too.
Yeah, that too. Meanest goal of the year. This is an interesting category. Joseph Martinez against Orlando, where he ruined Joe Bendick's day. And
he just ruined Joe Bendick.
No, Bendick was possibly ruined before that. I don't think Joseph gets full credit for it, but yeah, definitely the meanest reaction to it. That's for sure.
Yeah, Joseph, just the way he does things, I was like, this is really mean. I'm going to make a category just for Joseph to have this goal because of the way he stares down that man and just jogs away to go celebrate his record-breaking goal like he was going out to buy a sandwich. And then also getting mentioned is the Joseph goal against Chicago where Darlington Nagbe goes in on goal and just plays it across to Joseph when he could have shot and then makes that poor keeper dive across for no good reason. Like it was very selfless from Nagbe. It was also very rude, and I'm here for it. This team was mean when they wanted to be.
Yeah, both of those I think were definitely mean. I'm with you on that. I think both of those. I guess the way I quantify if a goal is mean or if a celebration is mean or not is how much it hypes me up watching the replays, like as I'm calling the game. So you see the goal and you're excited and you explain it, and then you see the replay and you're like, man, he just stared that guy down, or man, Nagbe just passed that over. He didn't have to. Goalkeeper stranded. That's just rude. That would be my qualification for it.
Kratz free kicks.
No. That's not mean. That's just quality. What's mean about that? It's a free kick.
The second one.
What's
after
mean
the
about
first
it?
one.
What's mean about it? It's a free kick.
The fact that
Joseph's last one in the hat trick against DC United, where he steps around Usted and just casually walks in, was pretty.
Yes, that's mean.
Cruel.
Yes, that's mean.
So I guess
that's
me
swagger.
thinking filthy versus mean is two separate things.
Yes, they're not the same thing.
Okay.
No, mean is just a different category altogether. All right, best disallowed goal of the year. You gave it to Nagbe against NYC.
It's because it would have been in the goal of the year conversation. It wouldn't have won, but it would have been in the conversation had it counted, because Gressel cuts it back across the top of the box and Nagbe basically hits a slider into the bottom corner, and Sean Johnson didn't really have much of an option.
Fair enough. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. That's a category you're not going to see a whole lot, hopefully. Hopefully not, anyway.
Yeah, but it laid ahead a few contenders this year.
Yeah, this is true. Best win, you gave it to the Eastern Conference Finals first leg against the Red Bulls at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I would probably say the win in the first leg of the Eastern Conference semifinals at Yankee Stadium. That would be mine.
That's in my honorable mentions. It's just getting over the hump against Red Bulls in such a big situation was just... And I get Red Bulls decided to change the way they play, go away from their bread and butter, but the fact that Atlanta was just so punishing and very easily could have won that game 4 or 5. Tito could have had a hat trick in the last 10 minutes of that game. It was just evil, but I liked it.
The reason why the NYC game is my best win is it followed the worst loss, and you gave that to away to Toronto. That was the one where, I mean, the Houston game was week 1, different situation altogether. You were missing some pieces. It was kind of weird. The Toronto game was the first time that you were like, all right, you're going to get to watch this team lift a trophy at the end of the day if they do their job here. And they failed completely. That was the worst loss easily. And I give the best win as the bounce back to that because there were so many questions about this team going into that game at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah, this was That was bad. I remember like that was the playoffs were great. That 90 minutes before the playoffs sucked. I mean, it was just like I remember at the station, we just had everybody asking, like, is this team even are they going to score a goal in the playoffs? Are they completely broken? I don't know. I mean, it's possible they could just fall apart at the seams. But
that's what everybody thought. I mean, that was national, that was local, that was fans, that was everybody worried about this team going into the postseason because of that Toronto game. And before we go to break, your MVP, you gave it to Miguel Almiron as the truly most valuable player on this team in 2018. I think it's a little bit different conversation, like who is the most valuable player in a team and who is the MVP award winner, because the MVP award has become maybe a little different than what it was absolutely intended to be. So I thought the way you broke that down was clear. And Miguel Almiron was, I absolutely follow your argument on him being the most important player to this team and the most valuable player in this team in 2018.
Yeah, he was the engine. I mean, he made everything go. This team is different with him in it. It's different with him without it. Joseph Martinez is the war chief here, who is just going to lead into battle and probably win the orc killing contest between Gimli and Legolas and Lord of the Rings Two Towers. But Miguel meant something different, and it's hard to quantify the two of them and separate them, so I tried the best I could. But make no bones about it, Joseph Martinez this was, for my money, the best season we've ever seen from an MLS attacking player, probably from an MLS player, period. And Miguel Almiron's value in that team is measured differently than Joseph's goals, but he's still very, very, very important to that team. And I think you saw it when he was and was not on the field. And I mean, if he goes in this transfer window, you got questions.
Go check out the full article at 929thegame.com from our boy Jarrett Smith. And we're going to take a break, come back, finish up with your Wall Pass Wednesday questions, comments, and we've got some news on the roster for the Mercedes-Benz Junior Cup, thanks to one of you guys out there. We'll talk about that after the break.
The average time a resume spends on an HR manager's desk is 7 seconds, and most of them are tossed aside. Now imagine if one of those resumes belonged to Yasmin, who was
living in a shelter, juggling 3 jobs. I had to be resilient. That's something that you can't teach.
We rely so much on a resume, yet it could never tell the full story of someone who
had to be independent and take initiative. And that's how I handle every project I get.
Discover new ways to develop great talent at gradsoflife.org. Brought to you by Grads of Life and the Ad Council.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Hey, hon, what you doing with your phone? Taking pictures?
No, I'm asking it questions.
Like what?
Hey, Bobo, do flowers have best friends?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, follow me. I want to show you something. Look, flowers do have best friends.
Whoa.
Some answers can only be found in nature. Discover the unsearchable. Visit discovertheforest.org to find a trail near you. Brought to you by the United States Forest Service and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here on a Wall Pass Wednesday. A couple more short segments for you as we wrap up. We'll be taking your questions. Tweet them at us at Soccer Down Here to get them in under the wire. But the Mercedes-Benz Junior Cup, this is a very interesting event. It looks like 6-a-side, and it's kind of like an indoor tournament, sort of, but it looks like a bigger field, and it's square, not rounded like American indoor soccer. So it's a whole different thing. We have a roster, thanks to Bernd Dursberger, one of our listeners who shared it with me. It's actually up on the Mercedes-Benz-Junior-Cup.de. If you go through the teams, you can find the roster for each of the clubs. And for Atlanta United, you're looking at a roster including Natnael McDonald, Andrew Carlton, Kendall Edwards, George Campbell, Dylan Gaither, Evangelo Sparatis? He's a player I'm not familiar with. Will Vent, Chris Goslin, Alessandro Castro, Jeremiah Luoma, Jackson Conway, and Colin Travasos. That's your squad that is headed to the Mercedes-Benz Junior Cup representing Atlanta United. So professionals in that group, Andrew Carlton, Chris Goslin, both on homegrown contracts with the first team, Alessandro Castro and Jackson Conway on Atlanta United 2 contracts. And then guys who have played in professional matches, Natnael McDonald made an appearance for Atlanta United 2. Kendall Edwards made a number of appearances for ATL UTD 2. Dylan Gaither made a number of appearances for the second team. Will Vent would have. He's the one who came over from Manchester United's academy. George Campbell would have, but had a badly timed injury last season, or he would have played with Atlanta United too. So there you go. That's your squad. Doesn't look like there's any broadcast or streaming or anything that we can see. I would imagine there will be highlight packages and such available. Looks like the games will start on the 5th around 11 a.m. Central European time. That's according to Andrew Baker. So stay tuned. We'll keep you posted as best we can on the event. But much more of a showcase type of event than a tournament you would traditionally look at. It's 6-a-side, it's indoor, it's a little bit different setup all the way around. One thing to keep in mind, we talked about that U.S. Youth National Team camp that'll be going on in Florida starting in a couple of days. Andrew Carlton, Chris Goslin, Jackson Conway, 3 guys who you would potentially expect to see there, will not be there at least from the start. Now, we don't know about George Bello. He could be there instead of at this event, or he could just be taking time off until Atlanta United training camp starts. But all these guys will be back before training camp starts on the 14th. There's nothing to worry about in that regard. So there's your Mercedes-Benz Junior Cup update. I think we have provided everything that we can possibly learn in a morning about the Mercedes-Benz Junior Cup, and we'll be keeping an eye on it as it goes. Should be fun. Should be fun to watch. I mean, you know, John, since it's a different type of format, since it's a different thing altogether, I don't even know what kind of expectations I would put on it at this point.
But for me, yeah, I don't necessarily, just account yourself well, whatever that means. For me, there's a certain coolness factor that is associated with this. It's like, hey, they thought well enough of you as an organization to sit there and say, hey, would you guys like to be a part of this thing? And that's really what I'm looking at more than anything else, is just the notion that, they knocked on your door and said, hey, you guys want to come over here and hang out and play in this hybrid indoor soccer, futsal, not quite, but almost soccer indoor thing, and the prestige that's attached to it. And for a team that has only been on the pitch for 2 years to be invited along with all of these other heavyweights to be a part of this thing, I'm looking at it more from the coolness factor about being invited to come and play in something like this. And that roster for me, you were going over how we saw them and what folks have known about that roster. I'd like to see how how well they account themselves, but it's once again all of that younger talent that's there through the Atlanta United organization that's going to be there for this thing.
Yeah, and you're going to play 3 games on the 5th. Atlanta United will play Liverpool first. They'll play Schalke in the second one, and they'll play Stuttgart in the third one. So you're looking at, these are 20-minute games. Yeah, 20-minute games. It's fast-paced. It's more about, as John said, the recognition of Atlanta United as a club to be part of this than anything that comes down to results or whatever. Zion Jones did say, see you there, to Atlanta United's academy. He's not part of the Schalke roster. I wondered if he would be, but he is not part of that roster that's on the tournament's website, unless there's been a change or something that's not published yet. He is not part of that, but it would not be a surprise to see Zion Jones dapping up some of his former teammates from Atlanta United at this event. Let's take our final break, come back, and finish up with your Wall Pass Wednesday questions, comments, and such. Tweet at us at Soccer Down Here. Last call. We'll be right back.
Sweet strawberry icing. You're in Goodwill, and just past that vintage denim jacket you spot miniature donut earrings. You lean in. That's the scent of shopping success. Because at Goodwill, every item you buy funds local job training and more. So bring home those donut earrings and bring home so much good to your community. Goodwill. Bring good home. Brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
Soccer Down Here is sponsored by Apolinski & Associates, LLC, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience. Call Steve Apolinski at 518-350-4231 or email him at steve@aa-legal.com if you need help with a wrongful death or serious injury matter. Steve Apolinski is rated one of the top 100 trial attorneys in Georgia, recognized as legal elite by Georgia Trend magazine for being one of the most effective lawyers in Georgia.
Hamilton was adopted from a rescue in 2008. He really likes to be around people. I get out my mat and I'm doing a downward dog and he's underneath. He's quite the pug about town. He gets invited to a lot of parties. He knows he's a pretty big deal. Look at this little face. How could you not love him?
Hamilton the Pug, Instagram star and shelter pet. Amazing adoption stories start in shelters. Visit theshelterpetproject.org to find a pet near you. Brought to you by Maddie's Fund, the Humane Society of the United States, and the Ad Council.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Final segment, Soccer Down Here. Bringing in the new year, first edition for 2019. It's our Wall Pass Wednesday. We're taking your questions and comments on the Twitters at Soccer Down Here. Josh Eisenberg chimed in on meanest goal for Jarrett's 2018 Atlanta United superlatives. The PK taken after VAR took away the San Jose goal. Mean in many levels. Different kind of mean.
I like it, though.
Yeah. I mean,
it's cosmically mean.
It was definitely cosmically mean. That was a whole crazy moment all the way around. It was mean.
Shout out to the commentators for literally not knowing how soccer works.
They were in Miami. They didn't know what was going on. I wish I wish that Mikey Alfano had been one of the cameramen for the game, because the clip he had of the elbow handball from Magnus Eriksson was perfect, like perfectly framed. And we had it in our AT&T countdown to kickoff for the RSL game. I mean, it was so obvious that it was a handball, it wasn't even funny. And I don't think they ever got a good look at it to see that part of it. So you don't know what's being reviewed. I saw it, watching it live, I saw enough of a flash from Eriksson, and I didn't see that he chicken winged his elbow up to block it, trying to be clever. But I saw enough of a flash of something up and blocking that cross, and the reaction from the Atlanta players and going to the AR immediately, that I knew what was being reviewed, but if you weren't there, you wouldn't have known. And that's part of the value of being on the road for these games. And it's just so much easier to call and do these things when you're there. And those guys couldn't. And then I don't think they had any help to kind of clue them in on what was going on. So it was just a bit of a mess. It's a tough spot for them because, I think they were frustrated with the situation and not knowing everything, and that frustration kind of boiled over. And then you got into like the whole thing about, well, it was 90 seconds after or a minute 40, whatever it was, and that had nothing to do with anything. That didn't affect anything here. So it was an awkward situation all the way around, but it was handled 100% correctly according to the rules, and there was nothing wrong with it, and there was no other way it could have been handled other than the AR making it clear that, yes, this is a handball, call the penalty. And he didn't, and you have VAR for that reason. So that's why it's there. It's just one of those things that's very tricky. But the penalty after that, instead of going to 4-1 and it being 3-2, yeah, that was definitely mean in a different kind of way for me. Josh also said most underrated player for Atlanta United over the last 2 years is Michael Parkhurst. Always appreciated, but never anywhere as much as he should be. Look at his stats and that of the Atlanta United defense. We're a defensive power in the league and not near enough credit for Parky. I think he was better in 2018 than he was in 17. I honestly think 2018 was one of the best years of his career, period. And when you see the way he played at his age with this team, you just, for me, I kind of get angry that he didn't get more opportunities with the national team. Because it's not like he didn't know how to play before. It's not like he didn't have these qualities before. He just wasn't recognized in that way. And he should have been, because he's shown how good he is. And this team doesn't win the way it has, doesn't win MLS Cup, doesn't do the things that it's done in its first 2 years without Michael Parkhurst being one of those first signings. Just would not happen.
I like the way that national media went about that late in the season. Like, damn, maybe we should have been putting him in the national team pool. How did this happen? Well,
I remember the 2017 Gold Cup when there were injuries defensively. And yeah, at this stage, Michael Parkhurst isn't a guy that would be in the national team. There's younger, better players that deserve those opportunities. But when you had the injuries you did around the Gold Cup and going into those last few games of qualifying, and you were going to be missing pieces, I remember saying it very clearly that I thought he should be called up. And people were like, no. He was playing that well. And that's why you have veteran players at times, because they can step into that situation and perform. And I think he could have if he had been called upon, if he had been needed. But he was not at that point. He should have been called up more. He should have had more opportunities with the national team flat out over his time. And he just didn't get that opportunity in his career.
Tafka TLC with a question before we go.
All right.
With Atlanta United Academy graduates in college now, an excellent academy prospect, should we expect to see Atlanta United trade their 2 to 4 picks, maybe even their first round pick, for assets? Feel like the college draft is superfluous now. Yes, Gressel is awesome. I think picks 1 to 10 have considerable chance of being valuable, but after that, I'd rely on my own academy production.
It depends on what you see. And I wouldn't trade them straight out of the gate, because you don't know what's going to be there as you get closer to your pick. Where you're picking this year, being as low as you are, might be a little different, but I don't know what kind of value there is on it. I mean, what are you going to get for a end of the first round pick at this point? Probably not much, unless there's a player that another club is like, man, I really want that guy, and I'm going to move up to get him, and here's $50,000 or $75,000 in allocation money. And if there's not a player that you want, cool, do it. I don't think it's something you're going to get much for. I think what the draft is showing now is it shows which teams are good at scouting and which aren't. I think that's what it comes down to, because look at what Atlanta United's done in the draft in their first 2 years. They have had a lot of hits, and they've gotten a lot out of most everybody they've drafted in their first 2 years of drafting. I don't know if there's anybody else who can say that. I don't think there is. I mean, you got Miles Robinson at number 2. And now that he's had some opportunities, I think he's showing why he was a number 2 pick, and he's got a long career ahead of him. Julian Gressel's been incredible for a number 8 pick. John Gallagher, you signed him to a new deal based off his performances in USL in his first year as a pro, and he's showing more versatility than you expected. Even though you didn't pick up Oliver Shannon for another year, he played a lot for your second team and was a very valuable part of that group. Gordon Wild, you got him on a Generation Adidas deal, so he's not affecting your cap or anything. So you were able to get minutes for him in Charleston, and now he's part of the group going forward. You see what you have with him. You know, even a guy like Paul Christensen, Andrew Wheeler-Amanu, you know, guys that, you know, didn't play a ton but have been valuable parts of this group that you got in a draft situation and have stepped in and been part of the group. That's big. Not many teams get that. I mean, how many teams have we seen that drafted guys? I think Colorado drafted a guy in the second round last year, and he didn't even sign with them. He opted to go to a second or third division team in Europe, not in a major league, in like a smaller league. You have these picks. You might as well put the time into it to see what you get. And that doesn't mean that Tofka is not correct. You might see these picks traded when you get down to it, but I don't think anybody is going to be clamoring for a bottom of the first round pick right now. I think the value in it will be who's picking a pick, 2 picks, 3 picks behind Atlanta in the draft who says, man, I really want to get that player. Here you go. Here's something for you to move up. Otherwise, Atlanta's going to pick somebody that they think is going to come in and compete. Compete for first team, compete for second team, compete for minutes, and at a minimum, be a valuable part of the squad from a training perspective. That's what they're looking for, and they've been able to do that in the first 2 years where other clubs haven't. It's down to the scouting, and it's down to the just maximizing every resource you have. This is a resource, and you're going to have to make a decision at the end of the day on, is it more valuable for me to pick somebody here who might not be a first-team player but might be a second-team player, might be a project, or is it more valuable to pick up allocation money if somebody wants to move up into this pick? It's going to be a case-by-case basis. I think every year going forward it's just going to be a situation that you see what's there, and if there's something you like, you take them and you bring them in. If there's not, if you can get something for it, cool, you move on. Orlando's situation's weird to me because they went the other way. They have stockpiled draft picks, and they have like 7 of them. But what are they going to do with them? Because what have they done with their draft picks before? Chris Mueller, good pick. They got that one right. Beyond that, I don't know. So I don't know what they're going to do with all these picks. It's interesting to look at the different approaches around the league and how teams are going to, take these on.
Then Nick Alifi says most underrated for Atlanta United in 2018, the sports science team to balance the workload well as they did during the run. Exceptional work.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think as we were just talking about the scouting department, so much of the behind-the-scenes staff has been so important to this group overall. So, yeah, there's a lot of underrated off-the-field elements for Atlanta United that contributed to lifting a tournament for sure. For sure. I think that's it on a stoppage time edition of Wall Pass Wednesday. Nope. Joe Bost has one. Did any of the previous coaching staff stay? We don't know yet. Doesn't appear to be the case. There were some rumors, and I don't know if they've been confirmed or not, of Dario Sala going to a club in Chile as an assistant. He was the one that I thought possibly could stay. Haven't seen any confirmation of any of that yet, and Tata Martino hasn't been announced in Mexico yet either. So I think that could go down any day now. We'll see who he takes with him and if anybody stays, and we'll see who Frank DeBoer wants to bring in, because that's the other element of it too. The manager wants to bring in people that he has worked with and he's comfortable working with. So we'll see what Frank wants to do on that side as well. I did read a piece over in the Netherlands about DeBoer raving about the setup with Atlanta and saying, talking to Mark Overmars, who's in a key role at Ajax now, and And Overmars is saying, man, there's things that we can learn from what Atlanta's done in their first 2 years in building a club and building an infrastructure. So there's lots of elements that I think DeBoer will be very excited about utilizing. And we'll see who he brings in to do that and what changes he might make. That's what happens when you see these changes of leadership. A couple other things as we wrap up. Felipe Cardenas reports that Guillermo Barros Schelotto could be announced by the LA Galaxy as their new manager at some point today, so stay tuned there. Orlando signed a homegrown player, Benji Michael, from the University of Portland, 21 years old, double-digit goals in each of his 3 college seasons, and he came up through Orlando's academy. That's a very interesting signing. He's performed at Portland, and a lot of people are high on him, so we'll see how that goes. Kevin Baxter of the LA Times reports that there's nothing to the rumors of Roman Alessandrini to Montreal. LA's got to move a designated player somewhere ahead of the roster compliance deadline. We'll see what they end up doing. Montreal had one of the tweets. I guess this would be the early frontrunner for Tweet of the Year in 2019. They basically said that they've agreed on everything with Alejandro Silva going to Olympia in Paraguay. They're waiting for the league approval. They also included New Kids on the Block and Step by Step in that tweet. So Montreal has set the bar
no one's
high.
perfect.
They're outstanding, and they'll never top the Nigel Rio-Coker introduction video. It's unbeatable. It is the gold standard of work from Montreal Impact, but this was good work out of the Impact social media team. We'll see when that gets approved. If Silva goes to Olympia in Paraguay, I would assume that it will be done. Kevin Quevedo from Peru, we've talked about him before. Looks like he could be headed to NYC, waiting on next steps there. Orlando is close to adding a 33-year-old attacking midfielder from Brazil, Diego Ribas from Flamengo. It's kind of an interesting situation. His contract is up in July. Flamengo offered him a new deal. He didn't like it. Ribas has agreed to a 3-year deal with Orlando. This is all from the mainland SB Nation website. He's agreed to a 3-year deal with Orlando, personal terms. Orlando doesn't want to pay a transfer fee because his deal's up in 6 months. Ribas wants Flamengo to let him go now. We'll see if they do. They're kind of stuck. I mean, they're not going to get anything for him if they hold on to him for 6 more months. He can sign a pre-contract right now with Orlando and join them in the summer transfer window. He wants to go now to start the season. Obviously makes sense. Flamengo, I think, wants to keep him and potentially wants to keep him long-term. It's a game of chicken a little bit with Flamengo and Orlando at this point. The thing that helps it is Flamengo will be playing in the Florida Cup this month in Central Florida and Orlando. I believe they might play some games in Tampa as well. And that should help actually being in the same place to negotiate and get this deal done. Maybe Orlando throws a small pittance towards Flamengo to get it done now because you'd like to get him to start the season. But 33-year-old attacking midfielder, don't you have somebody that nearly fits that bill in Sasha Kljestan already? That was the first thing that popped into my mind about this is, does that mean Kljestan's going to play in a deeper role? Is he going to play as an 8, play more next to Uri Russell? He played there with Anderlecht in the past, but that was a while ago. Does this mean Kljestan could be on the move? I don't know. It's a weird move for Orlando, but they've got to get some talent in that squad. We talked about it on our New Year's resolutions edition. They've just got to upgrade talent and give James O'Connor more pieces to work with. Lots of movement. I think you're going to start to see things ramp up starting today as clubs get back in the office, as deals start to get done, as more rumors start to happen with silly season now that the transfer window is officially open. In Europe, it's going to be a wild ride. So stay tuned to SDH and everything going on with us. We'll keep you posted as best we can. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. for our next edition. Talk to y'all then. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha plata, y'all.